welcome. Shout out to Brother Torrance for my intro video.
That was a
um,
good track.
yeah, man, I appreciate it. Welcome everybody. Welcome. Go ahead and hit the like, hit the share button. This one's gonna be good tonight. I'm hosting some good brothers, some brothers I consider friends, colleagues, out in this work, and so we really want to have a more nuanced conversation, right? Tonight about Jamila Lemieux, who was a phenotypically presenting Black woman who identifies as a Black feminist. And she wrote an article, I believe 4 days ago now, and it was by all accounts, okay, by all accounts, a straight up hit piece um, against Black men. What I would describe is certainly anti-Black misandry, which is an academic term to just describe a particular disdain or hate for Black men. And so, as an Africana womanist myself, I'm someone who does not identify as a feminist. I have never identified as a feminist of any kind, of Black, regular, or other kind, as a feminist. I identify with Africana womanism because I am rooted in the Black nationalist Pan Africanist tradition, and I believe in Black families and Black unity. I'm not interested at all in any type of Black movement that does not include all of us. So for me, that is the root of Africana womanism that does center the experiences of Black women, but not as opposed to our Black men or Black children, even for that matter. So I want to go ahead and allow each and every one of my panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves. Again, these are brothers I have a lot of respect for. They work in academia, the media, and they're doing some really good work and certainly love Black people. So I want to kick it to my brother Torin. If you want to do a brief introduction of yourself, dear brother.
Thank you, Sister Sakia. Hey, everybody. My name is Torrin Walker. I'm a writer, I'm a journalist, and I'm a documentary filmmaker. And I'm also the founder and editor of Context Media Group.
That's right. And next up, Dr. Travis Hood Scholar Harris.
Yo, what's up, y'all? What's up? Hood Scholar right here. As y'all see, my government, Travis Harris. I'm from the hood. And most thing I want y'all to know about me, I'm a family man, married 3 kids, and I love my people, right? And I'm Hood Scholar, that comes from, I actually got a PhD, but I'm from the hood. So I'm a scholar from the Hood Scholar. That's me. Let's get free, y'all.
That's right, brother. I love it. Next is up is my brother Quadwo. Welcome, brother. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. And thank you for inviting me. How would I describe myself? Okay, I am a scholar, activist, artist. I believe my area of scholarship is visual culture with an emphasis on Black and Africana visual culture. I'm currently a lecture professor in the Africana Studies Department at San Francisco State University. Been in love with a Black woman that I call my wife for the last 25 years, or
Yes,
24, 24 years. And so, yeah, when it comes down to loving Black folks, I feel that's top of my list and my main motivator for doing anything that I do.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And welcome. Next up is brother Jamil.
You guys can hear me? My mic good now?
Yep. Well, oh man, we
Okay,
hear you
awesome.
good now. Welcome.
Yeah. I had to change browsers, but glad that. Thanks for having me. My name is Jamel. Wear a lot of hats, but currently finishing a doctoral degree in poli sci, focus on Black political movements. That's sort of my research focus. Organizer, do a lot of activism in my community as well. So I mean, I'm just here to I'm hopeful to contribute to the conversation. Hopeful that we can, kind of build with one another. And yeah. And also, just I guess a shameless plug, co-host a Drop podcast with a couple folks called the Drop Squad. So please check that out. And if you aren't following me on Twitter, my ad is in the display name.
Yes, sir. Love your Twitter feed, brother. And next up is yeah, for sure. Next up is my good brother friend Trevor. Welcome, brother. Introduce yourself.
How's it going? Hope you guys can hear me. I was having mic
Yeah, we
problems
hear you.
before. But yeah, so Trevor Beaulieu, I see you try to avoid the last name. Everybody gets scared of it.
Hey, I'm not messing with
Not
it,
as
man.
not
I'm
as
trying
bad
to
as
get the back of your last name.
it's
Well,
not as
you
bad as it looks. It's just pronounced Beaulieu. It's not bad. Yeah, but lawyer, have a podcast called Champagne Sharks. Also a writer, and yeah, I'm just happy to be up in this space, hoping to learn a lot from you brothers. And to the people who I already know, great seeing you again. To the people I'm meeting for the first time, great to meet everybody, and looking forward to hear what everyone has to say.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, welcome, Brother LeBron. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is LaRon Barton. I'm a writer, author, speaker. I'm super excited to be on this panel with all these intelligent brothers. What's what's going on, Trevor, Torin, Dr. Hood Scholar, Jamel, the creator, as well as I'm sorry, cannot see your first name, sir.
Quadwa.
Quadwo.
I'm sorry, Qualo. Hey, very excited to be on this panel. I feel like that this presentation and this discussion is something that we need to be talking about. I mean, this is serious. So, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I saw it, and I could not, I will admit that I could not get through the entire article. It was repulsive. It was disgusting. I am not going to share it here tonight. I'm not going to even screen share it. And so, people, if you
No
want
free
to check it
promo.
out, no free promo on Real Talk with GSJ. We're not sharing
Ooh,
any harmful narratives on this platform. So for people who are just walking in or coming in digitally to the room, welcome. This is an impromptu live, and here comes my co-host. Here comes my co-host. What's up, brother Rennie?
what's
What's
up,
Introduce
going
Rennie?
yourself
on?
to the
All right,
audience,
we got
What's
real
up?
turned
quick,
What's
up.
brother.
up?
Yo.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can
what's
hear you,
up,
brother.
Yes,
Can
man?
you hear
What's
us?
indeed.
up?
Cool.
Got
Yeah,
some
yeah,
intelligent
yeah.
black
Sorry
folks
for
today.
being late. Literally
Oh, it's
just
all good. You
got
had already told me you was just getting off work, so it's all good. Just introduce yourself to the audience real quick.
oh
30 seconds
cool.
to a minute.
Yeah, my name's Rennie for those who do not know. Um I am an organizer, a social philosophy student. I study black male studies and philosophy. And that's pretty much it.
All right, this is my co-host tonight. He will be
Right.
helping me facilitate some of these questions and facilitate this very, very important discussion. Um, and so, again, room, housekeeping. If you're just coming in, hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you share this out. We probably will towards the end of this broadcast, which will be about an hour or so. You can post questions in the comments and we can bring them up, and one of our panelists can go ahead and try to take a stab at answering that for you. But in the meantime, hit the thumbs up button and share. This is a very important conversation tonight because we want to push back, or I want to push back and use my platform to push back on any type of harmful, negative type of narratives, if you will, about other Black people and Black men in particular on this particular issue. I want to start with this quote. A lot of people think Black feminism is the only theory to describe and deal with Black women's issues. It is not. Africana womanism is actually rooted in African centered epistemology, and it is from an African perspective about Black women's issues. Clenora Hudson Weems, or Dr. Clenora Hudson Weems, is the theoretician of this particular theory. And I want to read a quote from her to really center this conversation before we get started. She says, "Women are the Blacks of the human race." That's a quote. And it says, can they tell us then what or who are Black women? The Blacks of the human race. You would think that Black women did not exist. In fact, they find themselves denied uh, by the very women who claim to be fighting for the liberation of all women. Okay, so that's a quote from this book. I encourage people, if you're not familiar with Africana womanism, if you're not familiar with an African centered um, theory on Black women's issues, I encourage you to research Dr. Clenora Hudson Weems. So, without further ado, I want to get into this thing. I want to, I guess, start with you, Brother Torn, because I know you have also hosted a conversation on this particular issue. Can you just give us, I guess, really quickly, just your initial reaction when you read that piece and how explosive it was? What was your initial reaction?
Well, my initial reaction was, first of all, I was surprised that a magazine like Vanity Fair would even publish that. I've been a subscriber
Right.
to Vanity Fair before in the past, and they usually have a high standard when it comes to the writing that they publish. But they are sort of like a pretty, for lack of a better term, a Catholic way of looking at. They publish from a lot of different sources.
Mm-hmm.
So getting past that, I went and read the article, and again, I was surprised again that this article got published because liberalism is very, very crafty in the way that they push through their anti-blackness.
Very
What they
sophisticated. Yeah.
what they tend to
Yeah.
do is they find roundabout ways to kind of insinuate logic and certain buzzwords and topics into a conversation to like push their anti-blackness.
Yeah.
This one was so blatantly anti-black and especially anti-black male that I was really shocked that Vanity Fair was able to allow that to go through, which told me one or
Hmm.
two things.
Right.
It proved something that I felt like it's been happening for a while. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
this anti-black misandrous thought and a lot of this anti-black misandrous worldview has been prevalent in the academy for a very long time.
Oh yeah.
It's been prevalent in activist spaces for a very long time. And
Mm-hmm.
activists and academics basically have control of the mic when it comes to black issues and when it comes to intra-communal black issues.
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells me is like in the wake of what happened with Mike Brown and Ferguson, and especially in the wake of what happened with George Floyd, that there's this sort of like opening up in white liberalism to try to bring in black voices. But the black voices who are getting in are people who already have these anti-black misandrous views, and they have control of the mic and they have access to the media structure. So that's what you're hearing, and it's extremely. And just to finish this up, the fact that they have control of the mic and the fact that these people are getting published is extremely dangerous because they're setting themselves up as the only spokespeople for the majority of black people, and that's not the case. And this is going to be detrimental to the rest of us. So that's my thoughts.
That's right. That's right. Hood scholar.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking. Actually, it's for me is what me and Torrance talk about in the private message. For me, this just drew the line in the sand, right?
Right.
This was like, and let me just tell y'all my background real quick. I'm gonna be very quick. So I've actually been doing community work since I was 6 years old. Right? Shout out to my mom, black woman, had me doing work. I'm actually the organizer of a international organization right now where I'm working with people from Nigeria to South Africa to Cuba, all that, right? But I actually used to be a Black Lives Matter organizer, right? I kind of ashamedly say that now, but like in 2014, I thought, hey, this is it, y'all. Like
Right.
we finally all come together. This is it, and like,
Mhm.
yo, let's go. And I went to Ferguson, and I was on board. And you can in many ways you can say that I was like a black feminist of sorts, right? Because I was a BLM organizer. I was in grad school at the time, and this is pumped through grad school, right? Because even though I'm a hood dude, I was new to like the higher education, and I just wanted to be around black people. So what was being pushed for blackness was in reality black feminism. Like that's a whole dangerous narrative right there that like we can really unpack. So I'm a hood dude. I'm in grad school. I'm happy that I'm like trying to be around black people. And so I thought to be black, I accepted these narratives
Mm-hmm.
unknowingly, unconsciously. That's how dangerous this is. I
Right.
started to question this in around 2017, 2018. And when I started to question, I'm like, hold on, like this ain't right. Like this ain't like what I experienced growing up, what I know from all the people I like this, all this stuff ain't adding up. And then so slowly but surely I went through the process of like, oh, well, when I got to this article, I am now clear that black feminism is an agent of white supremacy, right? It's a clearly, and now I actually have like primary sources to back this up. But for me, this was like, this is it. This is clear. There's is not even a sense because this is I'm sorry, I'm wrapping up with this. It's tricky because some of the issues they talk about are things we need to address. Like we do need to look at how we intercommunal violence, all that stuff, right? So it's so slippery that there are issues that need to be addressed, but they'll take this little small thing and run with it, and made it all the way so much bigger, right? But because of how conniving it was, it had me thinking, oh, this is something we need to deal with. And then this piece for me was like, it was a very clear on my journey that this is it. Black feminism is an agent of white supremacy and is detrimental and harmful to our people.
That's explosive, brother. And I think, like you said, you got the primary sources like to back it up. But I mean, it's pretty clear. If you think about the tactics that were used with this particular piece, it's really reminiscent to me of the Black Macho from the 70s by Michelle Wallace. It was a flat out attack. I mean, an entire book. And I have no proof of this, but I actually suspect the sister actually didn't even write the book. They used her name, but somebody else wrote that shit. You know what I mean?
A lot of people.
I'm saying I have no proof of that. Yeah, go ahead, Trevor. Yeah.
Let's say a lot of people speculate on that, and something that I don't know if you guys know, but Jamila Lemieux wrote the introduction to the latest edition of the Black Macho.
Wow.
She wrote the official introduction. They brought it back, and she jumped right in front of that thing and attached her name to it. So yeah.
If I can be even more clear, because I know people think it's speculation. It's actually Michelle Wallace documented this herself. She went on record and spoke to how many parts within her text were written by a white feminist. However, she did not know that she could make edits.
Was that Gloria Steinem?
No, Gloria Steinem, as we all know, who acknowledged that she was a part of the CIA during the 1950s. Gloria Steinem was one of the funders for the National Black Feminist organization in the 1970s. And she had a magazine titled Miss Magazine, for which she had Michelle Wallace's Black Macho on the front of the magazine. So she funded a lot of these Black feminist projects in the 70s. And so we know that this is a fact. This isn't even disputable. Like, you can look up Miss Magazine, Black Macho, you'll see her face right on the front. So it's not even speculation at this point. But I did have a question as it pertains to the piece on Vanity Fair. What I thought was interesting was how it was worded, particularly in the tweet. Now, I'm not sure if people are aware, but it was proposed as the Black version of the Big Lie. Now, just some historical accuracy around the Big Lie. If for those who do not know, the Big Lie was something that Adolf Hitler coined in relation to the Jewish Holocaust. For Hitler, it was, if you made the lie big enough, then people would take on that propaganda and believe that propaganda. I thought it was interesting that she was juxtaposing the Big Lie as Black men basically believing that they are the most oppressed within the community and that only their concerns matter within the community. That was being juxtaposed as the Black version of the Big Lie. So with these juxtapositions, Black men are directly being compared to Adolf Hitler in not so subtle terms. So going to, anyone who wants to take this question, what do you think about that, given something that we can directly sort of like link the Big Lie to the Black version of the Big Lie? Like, what do you see in that? And this coming from a mainstream Black feminist.
I want to bring
may I jump in there?
Oh, okay, go ahead. And then I'll bring Quado right in after you.
Sure. So when I saw that Jamila had this very anti-Black male article published in such a wide-ranging white publication that is Vanity Fair, I immediately thought of Michelle Wallace's the Black Macho. It's the same playbook, right? So you're gonna have this piece or this book that is going against Black men, and you're going to have it on a platform that is primarily read by white women. Something that Trevor tweeted out recently, he was like, well, we've been going at Jamila as well as Professor Crunk, but what about Vanity Fair, which would give this woman a platform to write this crap? for me, regarding the big lie, you're associating black men with Nazis. I can't think of a group in America that is more reviled than Nazis, or I'm sorry, in the entire world, Nazis.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're saying that black men we're on that level. No black man that I know, and correct me if wrong, maybe maybe I'm just speaking anecdotally, but no black man that I know thinks that we are the most oppressed, or even has that on our mind. We're, for the most part, black men are concerned about the entire black community. It isn't just this, well, let me segment. Now, now we do often address that intersectionality doesn't include us, and it is an extremely flawed theory. But her piece is just basically saying that we only give a shit about us. Excuse my language, and it's
No, you're
it's just
fine.
and it's just not true. I mean, and I'll wrap it up here. If you look at some of our great queer black leaders, such as James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, they wrote about the black experience. They were black first. If you
That's right. That's
if
right.
you will, they did not push their sexuality, and it's so fascinating to me that people seem to want to do this. It's like what political commentator Yvette Carnell once said. It's escape hatching, right? So it's like, yo, like I'm not just like you Negroes. I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this group, and it's just so devious.
Come on in, Quadro. I know you had some comments, and then I'll bring in Jamil.
Yeah, some general framing regarding Vanity Fair. Up until recently, Vanity Fair really didn't have very many black folks, or quote unquote people of color. I hate using that term in Vanity Fair. I'm a long
Me too, bro.
time newsstand reader of Vanity Fair. I can remember back in the late or mid 1980s when Basquiat passed away, and the writer on the article said that Basquiat was the first important painter that Black America has produced. Taking a hop, skip, and this is in a major, as you well know, Vanity Fair is an international magazine, so it has an international footprint. And so that something like that could get past an editor tells you what the social milieu, the editorial culture is like at Vanity Fair. But post BLM, you see, a lot of faces, a lot of black faces in the magazine, and you see a lot of topics surrounding black folks, just like we're seeing in all of the media. And so I'm going to say that about Vanity Fair, the same thing I say about our presence here, our amplified presence in a lot of the media, like television shows and movies, films, et cetera, and so forth, is that the technique has been to allow the black image to appear, but to vandalize it in the process. So there's this paradox of high visibility, and then you vandalize the image in the process. And then because a lot of us are so starved to see ourselves in print and being talked about in complicated ways, et cetera, and so forth, we just applaud the fact that, there's a discourse about us in Vanity Fair. At least a lot of us do. So we don't have the critical lens to be unpacking Vanity Fair. 9 out of 10 black folks ain't reading no Vanity Fair, and haven't been for decades.
And that's the problem.
One thing.
She wrote it,
Yeah.
and the readership is primarily middle-aged white women.
Exactly. That's the point. Thank you, Sister Zakia. That's the point I was making, is that she's not writing to us. This is typical virtue signaling here, right? There's a different audience altogether. That's why it's so abhorrent and toxic to us. The other thing I was going to say is thank you very much, Sister Zakia, for pointing out the Black Macho and this thing about her editor, because in the footnotes to Tommy Curry's The Man Knot, he actually talks about this and quotes what she said about it. She says, although I haven't looked at it in years, it's still too painful. There's a substantially edited original manuscript of Black Macho in the state in which it first went to the publisher's typist, available to researchers as part of my papers at the New York Public Library Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. In order to speed my book to publication, I incorporated almost all of my editor's suggestions, because it never occurred to me that she wasn't the final word on all things having to do with my book. even though she was this is a quote, rabid anti-feminist and probably hated Black women. And so, there in her own words is the fact that, in other parts of the quotes that he does, she talks about how young she was, that she just had a bachelor's degree when she was doing this thing. And so that leads me to this, which is that how Jamila comes to the front of the line in front of, in my opinion, a whole bunch of intellectuals, Black women intellectuals and Black womanist intellectuals that give a more nuanced and understanding perspective on the Black male experience, and don't necessarily foreground people like, Dave Chappelle or freaking Kanye as examples of Black masculinity in America. You know what I'm saying? Or Bill Cosby as Black examples of Black masculinity in America. So there's a whole myriad of folks. So we can see how she would show up and she would mention, Brittany Cooper, et cetera, and so forth, but not mention Sister Zakiya or Nyota Uhuru or, any number of folks that we can see here on social media in the Twitter sphere that they are so prominent in. And so I hope we'll get
something
some
that
other
shocked.
aspects of the discussion.
Let me bring in Jamil real quick, and then I'm
Yeah.
talking to you because I want you to explain the brilliant, very creative bingo game that you created as a response to that article. Jamil.
Oh yeah, but
I do have a.
go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh,
I wanted
oh.
to bring Jamil in, but I had a particular question that I wanted to link his way. One thing I did notice about the piece is how it did use the personality and the comedy of Dave Chappelle to sort of ground a vicious attack on Black men in general. I thought that was interesting because there are some legitimate critiques that can be had of a Dave Chappelle. I actually wrote something about Dave Chappelle's class background and how that could disallow him to see some of the variations of Blackness, right? Poor, queer, what have you. So I just want to know, like, what do you think in particular of how she was able to sort of use Dave Chappelle to ground a vicious attack on Black men in general, and like how it could have been a critique of just Dave Chappelle and his work, and it could have been rightly so. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's funny that you actually made that, because that was my initial thought after seeing this article, and it's been a critique I've long had. There's this weird sort of there's a rhetorical style that a lot of these writers engage in, and we see it all the time. There's this very sort of pseudo intellectual, pseudo analytic generalization, right, to all Black men and boys, regardless of the act, right. And it's done in a very inconsistent, contradictory nature. We see it, so, as simple as you can see a Black man save a fire, and that's one singular Black man. But if you see a Black man throw someone in fire, that's all Black men, right? And so somehow these two acts are not equal to one another, when a Black man's negative act is worth 100 times worse, right, than, say, a Black man's positive act. And what you see when, there would be no way for sort of the type of nuanced article to be written, she wouldn't be able to write this article to generalize to all Black men. It wouldn't be possible, right? If you were actually trying to write an actual nuanced article that included data, that actually had real substantive examples. You have to rely on these cherry-picked sort of celebrity, right, examples, people who represent a different class status, people who come from a different milieu, people who, especially people who have been famous for 10 to 20 to 30 years, as in the case of Dave Chappelle, right? People who have been long disconnected from any sort of community, right? And so it's like, as you go through the article, you see these different appeals to almost every example is a Black male celebrity, right, doing something wrong. And you kind of wonder, how is it that this is how is this the base, the fulcrum from which your entire analysis depends on, right? And how then can you, if you want to say we need to talk about Black male celebrities, sure, go ahead. I can't relate to those guys. If that was the sort of pivot she wanted to make, it'd probably still be a pathological article, but at least you're sort of trying to pivot. At least it makes sense, right? But these articles, what we often see is this very weird, very pseudo-analytic view. And I always tell people, whenever I see one, and you can always tell also, like, you guys brought up the very valid point. This article is, what is the median age, I think, for a Vanity Fair view is like a woman of 40 about
right?
45 years old.
45.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so the initial thing is, even if you're writing this, who am I writing this for? You can't be writing it for us. You can't be writing this for the black community. You can't be writing this for the disproportionate amount of homeless black men on the streets right now who are chronically disabled, chronically who have been in and out of the carceral system since when they were in foster care prior to 18 years old. You can't be writing to those cis straight men. You know what I mean? This can't be about them. This can't be about it might be 1 in 4 now, black men incarcerated or under surveillance in the state or federal system. This can't be about those individuals. This can't be about the black boys who have been separated from their fathers, who are currently being over penalized in school right now as we speak, even in remote learning situations, right? This can't be about them. And so the question is, like, who are you writing this article for?
Exactly.
Who is this for? And so my right. So I just, and I'll just end with this. Like, I think there's a real, there's never any, and I see this with Jamila, I see this with Brittany Cooper, I see this with a lot of black feminist writers, particularly the pop culture ones. There's no real investment in the community, and you can always see that by this need to pluck out one specific subgroup, and it's always straight black men, right? Which is just like, I get it, because in your intersectional, and I hate using it as an adjective, but in that framework, right? It's a hierarchy, it's top down, and in the black community, we're considered to be, in their words, despite all the data that suggests otherwise, these sort of the white people of this community. And so by simply plucking out cis straight black men, like a white feminist would in their community of white men, they think they're doing some sort of they think they're actually doing good analysis, and it's fundamentally wrong. And whenever I see people sort of engage that way, I immediately sort of just like, I lose interest, because I know that this person has no investment in community. They're not actually interested in the outcomes of black boys, black girls, or anyone. They're sort of just interested in, their own self-climb. And that's sort of what we see with this Jamila piece.
I'm gonna have T follow up, and then Dr. Travis, I'm gonna have you come in.
Okay, can I do this real quick? Just because I think that this is really critically important. There's an article written by our brother Skia Torre. Quadwa, I know you remember who that is. But he wrote this about black male and female relationships in the early 70s, actually responding not just to the black male macho, but the color purple and all of these, and the for colored girls. Like, he responded to all of that, like, wait a minute, like, something kind of orchestrated is going on here. But I wanted to read June Jordan's response really quickly in terms of the book. And because I think, to me, this is what it's all about. And June Jordan says, in terms of the book itself, I can only say that it is one of the most vicious, slanderous attacks against black men and women, and indeed the black liberation movement. That's what it was all about from jump. And I think that is really critical for the audience to hear that, and to know that these people are afraid of black unity. They are afraid of black people coming together and seizing power away from white domination. Trevor?
Yeah. At first, I wanted to respond to something that Quadro said, but also to something that Jamel said also. Like, you guys are making such good points. Like, I just wanted to jump in on them. But when Quadro was bringing up the qualifications of Jamila Lemieux, to a lot of people on this panel, this is probably old news, but it's new to me, because after Bell Hooks died, I was like, I actually want to watch her stuff and go back to some of her stuff to see what the big deal was. And I had tried her first book, Ain't I a Woman, in the past, but I tried to revisit it. I didn't realize she was like an undergraduate and had not even finished graduating from undergrad when she wrote that book. And it's one of the books that, was pushing that, the Black Panthers took over all the male Black Panthers took over all the movements and sidelined all the women, and were these, bullies that centered themselves and marginalized women. And people still cite this book to this day. And she was an undergraduate in English, I believe, not even in this thing. And it just kind of shows English. To add to, I think, Quadro's point, that when you're saying something like that, they don't care what your qualifications are. Like, Dr. Curry can have citation after citation, and it's still not enough. And he's really thorough. But if you want to say something bad about straight black men, you could be anybody. You could be the janitor. They don't care. No disrespect to janitors. It's but just like, it could be anybody. And the second thing I want to say is something that Jamel said. He said, who is this for? And I think that's a great question. But I would add something else as well. I would say who it's for also determines what the ask is. So if it's for black men, then I can say, okay, the ask is treat black women better. But I would throw out there, if it's for 40-year-old white women, what are you asking them to do? And to me, I think it's got to be pass laws.
Come
Like,
on, come on.
what does she want from them? Like, what does she expect them to do? I mean, on the most benign, mild level, I think she wants to make sure that she and her friends get the work instead of Dave Chappelle. Because say what you will about Dave Chappelle, whether you agree with his politics or not, he's talented, and people actually want to pay money, especially white people, to see his work. He's still selling out, whatever. But these people, they're kind of like a charity case, even among their handlers. Even the tweets these people put out, they have. Jamil Lemieux has like almost 200,000 followers. She has like 170,000 or 180,000. It wasn't getting that much likes what she was putting up there. That article, it wasn't getting that much replies. It was mostly people dunking on her and ratioing her.
Exactly. I
yeah.
noticed that too.
Professor Crunk basically has all these followers, and she can't get anything to go off when she tweets it. Like they're just mascots. They don't really get taken seriously. I got into it with Professor Crunk yesterday, and she has like 8 times my followers, and none of her tweets were getting any likes. Like nobody was clicking them. So I think if you look at the article, how much of the article was dedicated to name dropping their I call them the untalented 10th. Like they were just name dropping the untalented 10th over and over again. And like people don't really mess with these people, and that's what I think makes them mad at Dave Chappelle as well. Like they're very careerist, they're very climbing, they're very striving, and people don't really mess with them like that.
Can I speak to that, or does Jamel have to go?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point, and I think what you really highlighted, Trevor, is this is what it is, right? And this is sort of how you know that their politics are not radical, right? That when you look at sort of what the end goal is, what are we aiming here? These people, like even Brittany Cooper, a lot of academics, they're very comfy in their tenured positions. They're very sort of insulated and surrounded by white people. Most of Brittany Cooper's followers and her audience is also white women, right? These are the people who consume her work. And, when you look at it, you'll say like, is there a radical outcome of this thing, right? Is there a radical call to action? No. It's only ever the most radical thing they'll say is accountability. And what does that look like, in a world where, punitively this group that they're asking for accountable is the most held accountable group in the entire world, right? Like literally not even close. And not just in this country, in Brazil and abroad, in in every single country, black men are the most punitively held accountable group. What does that mean, right? And then also just like again, these are people, they just want the jobs. They just want jobs. They're saying, oh my gosh, Dave Chappelle's transphobic. Give me his position instead. They're not trying to break down institutions. They're not trying to tear anything down. They're not trying to dismantle anything. They literally just want the seat that someone else has that they don't think they deserve. That's all it is.
And that's the most benign thing. But that's the most benign thing. But the worst case scenario is that they want laws, and that's even scarier to me. That's the last thing.
One thing I think is interesting.
That's
like,
what we got to fight.
Facts.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need no more laws.
And
that's real.
I want to piggyback off of Trevor's point. When a couple of people in the panel asked about what the audience is, and the audience is, true enough, these middle-aged white women who read Vanity Fair. But one thing we're not talking about is the fact that Vanity Fair is sort of like a Bible for a lot of white neoliberals. It really is, because they do a lot of political writing, a lot of neoliberal political writing. People like Hillary Clinton get bylines, people like Bill Clinton. A lot of people in the Democratic Party power structure are either on the board of Vanity Fair or they're subscribers or they're writers.
Damn, that's a good point.
And like I said,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, for real. And like at the top of this, when we started, a lot of people who read Vanity Fair and a lot of people who make policy in Washington read Vanity Fair. And a lot of these people are about as far removed from the Black collective as you can get, even more so than people like Black feminists like Brittany Cooper. So they look to outlets like Vanity Fair to try to shape their worldviews. And if what they see about the Black community is somebody like a Jamila Lamu writing something about black men are patriarchs and black men are abusive and violent, how is that any different than Hillary Clinton saying that black boys are super predators and need to be brought to heel?
Come on.
Now, another part of what you said, Trevor, is you're right. They want jobs, but the thing about that is what they want is, well, there's two parts to this. Yeah, there's a striver class, and there's a striver class in like black creativity, whether it's people like I can't think of the guy's name, the guy who wrote Slave Play, and the people who write like Roxane Gay, Jamila. Jamila's not in that class just yet, but she's striving to get into that class. There's a class of black writers, black creatives, and black pundits who create this clique. They basically are trying to set themselves up as the be all and end all and the HNICs of black voices. They pretty much have MSNBC on lock. They're the people who get guest spots on CNN. They're the people that white liberals go to get the tenor of the black vote and the tenor of the black community. And you're going to see a lot. We saw them kind of come to a head in 2020 when there was a lot of skepticism about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and you saw a lot of rank and file working class black people saying, why are you picking these people to be the nominees? Look at their crime bill records. Look at the record in California. And if you remember, and I said this on the space yesterday, there was almost like this group chat that went out within that week of all these people who work at CNN, all these people who work at ESPN, all these people like Jamel Hill, people who have huge media platforms, who automatically started out this line saying, why are these cishet black men downing Kamala Harris? All they want to do is be patriarchs, and they're afraid of the fact that there might be a black woman president. When nobody really wanted to address the fact that her record on prosecution in California is abysmal. Joe Biden, we don't even have to go into the history of that. So there's this group that Jamila and people like her want to be a part of. They want to be a part of that clique that gets a call from white liberals when they want to say something about black people without having to really go to the black masses. Now, the second part of that is this. There's also a class aspect in this, because the people who are in this clique are usually upper middle class to middle class. That's how they grew up, or they grew up in spaces far away, far removed from the black community. If you look at the family history, most of these people, you'll see that they either grew, and they talk about it themselves on social media, they grew up far removed from the black community, or they felt ostracized from the black community.
Or one of their parents is white too. It's suspected Jamila Lamu's father is white.
That part,
that too. So what happens is, what do people who feel like they're outcasts do? They either heal themselves or they breed resentment. So you have a whole class of people who feel like they've been outcast from the black community. So they're either trying to push themselves back into the black community, or as getting in front of them or being smarter than them, or they breed resentment. And a lot of these people go to Ivy League schools. They build cliques around each other in those spaces, and they also get jobs in, high level masthead publications. So they all know each other. So they all reinforce each other. And there's a certain set of unwritten rules that you have to say, of things you have to say to get into that clique. And number one in that rule is that you have to demonize straight black men. If you go back and look at the history of them, all of them have tweets that have gone viral, or they've had small blogs that went viral where they tried to move this narrative into the mainstream. And for the most part, this stuff has been confined to like black media and like stuff that we talk about online, like The Root and VSB and stuff like that. But these people are starting to get book deals. They're starting to get listened to by the white power structure. They're starting to show up on like talk shows late at night. So what I'm saying is, I agree with you. I think the end goal for most of them is really just straight up opportunism and careerism. But the deadly goal of this is that because people who make laws and have real power in this country listen to them, the end goal is going to be a second Jim Crow, and it's going to be another crime bill that's going to come down to stop these black predators, just like you saw with the end of Birth of a Nation in 1921.
That's but here's the thing, Torin, and you was cooking, brother. But here's the thing: I think it's actually flipped. I don't think it's that. The Democratic Party is just sitting back and they're listening to Jamila Lemieux. I think it's actually much more strategic. Again, I think about if you all haven't read this, go back and read the entire thing from Brother Askia Touré, because this is by design. I'll just say it that way. They're using people like Jamila and Professor Crunk and all these others as blackface on what they need them as cover, brother. It's not that they're listening to them. These people are actually being put in position. Y'all talking about the editors let all this stuff go. Listen, this is orchestrated. They're not doing things like they're supposed to be done. Ain't nobody following no rules. You know what I mean? There is an objective. The objective is clearly to ensure that there's not a rise of a black messiah, period. Well, how are we not connecting the COINTELPRO program of the FBI and certainly CIA's involvement in creating a lot of these different things? It's a continuation of it, and I just don't think we can get away from that. I think it's flipped. I think that these people know that they're being paid. I don't think that they're not dumb. The COINTELPRO papers are out there. Freedom of Information Act happened years ago. They know what's up. And I think that these people are allowing themselves to be used to the detriment of Black boys and men. And I think it's intentional.
Absolutely. I want to bring brother Travis. I'm sorry. No, I just want to bring brother Travis back into the conversation really quick. So Robert Allen writes this book, right? And you have a lot of experience organizing on the ground. Robert Allen writes this book, Black Awakening in Capitalist America. One of the central arguments that he puts forth is this idea that once you get the contradictions on the ground with like the SNCC organization, the SDLC, and CORE, you start to see a rise in Black power, which is coined by Stokely Carmichael. But what happens is you start to get these liberal foundations like the Ford Foundation that come in and with the goal of turning the phrase Black power into something for Black capitalism. If we look at today, we see the rise of BLM, and we see how, if you go back to one of their first interviews, they are actually with the goal of actually changing the leadership. Their one of their biggest goals was to change the leadership based off of this idea that only if women lead, could movements like Black Power have been successful. And the only problem was the fact that Black men were trying to mimic white patriarchy. So my question to you here is, on the ground, given what we've seen, given what we continue to see, connecting it to what Sister Zakia was just speaking about, what do you see on the ground in the movement with this idea that there can only be one design for leadership, and how does that look when it connects to like white liberal dollars being funded to have these kind of organizations with one premise? I don't mind anyone leading, but they need to be revolutionary in character. If there is no cis Black men that are revolutionary in character, I'm fine with it. But we know that's not the facts, right? So if I can bring you in, like, what have you seen?
Yeah. So dope question, and Zakia is exactly right. So actually, I want to give this example that ties back in a lot of what has been said, especially what Jamel had mentioned earlier. One of my members was at a BLM protest. Well, I don't know if it was BLM per se, but BLM type protest in Richmond during the uprising in 2020. And at the protest, right, get this. And man, so much stuff I want to tell y'all, but let me just say this. The people who was leading the protest had like the whole BLM mantra, talking about, now listen to this, y'all. They basically in my city, in my hood, talking about some Black male patriarchy and all this bullshit, right? Like my homies, like basically my homies like, fuck you talking about, bro? Like nobody out here ain't hearing that. But the key thing to take away from that is this. This is listen to this. So you have two Black quote unquote queer women, right, who are literally claiming that Black men have privilege or Black men have patriarchal power, while they're saying this on a bullhorn with two homeless men in the audience.
That's crazy.
Listen how preposterous and how stupid this shit sounds, right? How you gonna say Black men have privilege? You got homeless Black men in the audience. When you the one who's with the bullhorn, and you the one who's about to get on the Uber, because I knew the one person, like me and her went back and forth. We had a falling out, whatever. You're going to catch an Uber back to your apartment before the police come, before they start tear gas, before all that happens, right? In the daytime, in front of the cameras, you could be in the bullhorn talking about Black male patriarchy and power.
But what I think that's about, if I could just say something, I used to think that was a contradiction, and Jamila even does it in the article where she's like, Black men are privileged, but they also have these bad outcomes. And I think how they reconcile it, and it's low-key really extra bad. What they try to say is, because I've seen them kind of say this on Twitter and different places when you press them on it, is that Black men, they do have all these privileges. So the fact that they're doing worse is just more of a sign of how messed up they are, how
it's just
much
all
of a waste it is to invest things in.
And again,
and
that's a
like
miss
all these breaks. that all these breaks,
Yeah.
and they're still just fucking up out there. So
Yeah.
that's why black women have to be given the lead.
That's race science from the 18th century.
And that's just a misanalysis of how the state exercises its power, right?
Right.
This isn't even something that we have to sort of like hold as a conspiracy theory. We have all the evidence, like it's empirical, it's qualitative, it's
Yeah,
anecdotal, it's there's so much hard evidence that we can point to, and even theories too. If we're talking Jim Sedanius, right, subordinate male hypothesis, and if you're even serious about a colonial analysis, and it's not even necessarily centering black men. What do they do with the subordinate males in that population? Exterminate. Why is it that in Brazil, right? What did they do? Why is it that 98%, I believe, is the figure of Afro and indigenous people have a European paternal ancestor, but not in a African or indigenous maternal ancestor? Because they exterminated all the men and slept with the women, right? This is a very specific sort of racial assimilative process, right? And the only difference is, instead of just trying to literally kill them and just whitewash away, they followed a different process of genocide here, right? And that's what's happening.
Right.
And the idea, genocide, someone had mentioned, genocide is a process. It's not an event. It's not a singular event. And so for people to sort of, a lot of people are caught up in the effects of the exercise of state power, right? The structural effects, right? So it ends up being, right, a black man who's been in and out of prison for 27 years committing an act of violence against a black woman, right? And so they'll look at that singular act and say, well, oh my gosh, see, this is what's wrong with black men. And then they'll stop there, right? And we'll all agree that no, there shouldn't be acts of violence against black women. There shouldn't be acts of violence against black men or anyone, right? I think that's where we're all on board here, and that's where we should be converging, right? Because if we all seem to care about black people, then this should be the easy common conversion point. But they're not interested in that, right? They're not interested in that because they talk about the abuses that not just black men, other people experience by the hands of other people in the community, children, etc., different forms of neglect, etc., right? There's never a holistic conversation. And so
there's never, right.
Yeah.
There's a second part to what I wanted to get to. And for me, like on this part, I really can't F with the theory when you have a homeless man in front of you. Like, bro,
Yeah.
like
Exactly. That's
you
bullshit.
got a homeless man
Y'all
in front of you,
making up
like,
shit.
all that-
Y'all
it's
want to
bullshit,
exterminate
like,
black men.
yeah. But the second part is, and what I noticed, this actually happened. I'm currently working on a paper with another brother who's been organizing since the 1970s. I noticed this actually with the freedom movement in the 1960s. So what happened was this narrative, and actually, unfortunately, a lot of us fall into it. We even call it the civil rights movement, right? When you actually look at it, the whole framing of a civil rights movement is a white framing of the movement.
Yep.
So what they did was they had this backlash to a 1960s movement where they called it the civil rights movement. And then in the 1970s, Gloria Steinem and other clearly feminists, they said, we need to fight back against the movement. So what do? We empower in multiple ways black feminists to create particular narratives, what I am calling a charismatic narrative, right? This charismatic narrative then allows them to present the movement as individual leaders. So then civil rights movement becomes Martin Luther King Jr. Black power movement starts off in not that this is correct, but with the narrative, it starts off with X, and then it goes with Carmichael Toure, and then Huey P. Newton, right? And so then what you can do is you can critique individuals, claim sexism, right? And then actually have a misunderstanding of the way in which the movement works. And so what I'm arguing for is we need to reframe this. We need to have a black lens, a black solution, a black perspective for black problems, and call it the Black Freedom Movement that didn't start in the 60s. It didn't start in the 50s. Black people have always resisted, right? Since the beginning of colonization, right? So we can connect our freedom struggle to this long freedom struggle. Yeah. That when we get to the 70s, right? Oh, and Zacchaeus has this with Gloria Steinem, who worked with the CIA, was the one who's funding these feminism, right? But when we get to the 70s, right? Then when we get to what happens, then BLM literally does the same exact playbook, right?
Yes.
They control the media. What do? They take over the movement. And now they're saying this is the Black Lives Matter movement in the very same way they said it was a civil rights movement. But what they're doing now, the reason why it's so ingenious, right, is because they took the narratives that they used in the 70s to say, oh, look at this. They say, let's focus on the leadership and say we don't need cishet men as leaders. We need to focus on black men. And we need to focus on black women and queer folks. And then that allows them to push black feminism into the mainstream.
Right.
The reason why all this is important, and I wrap it up, is with this. Now, the mass audience don't actually understand how movements function, right? So we are in a black freedom movement that's not confined by a particular time period, 1954 to 1968, as they would say the civil rights movement, right? No, we've been resisting revolutionary suicide. We've been fighting. We fought on Africa. We fought on the shores. We fought on the boats. It's been a fight the whole time, right? That's one. And two, movements do not work with just one person. It wasn't just King. It wasn't just
a collaborative.
It wasn't just Carmichael. Yeah. It was the way the movements work. And I was actually looking at this today for Sister MLK day. There were so many different chapters of SCLC and SNCC. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands and thousands of black people who was organizing, strategizing, fighting together for the freedom and liberation of our people, right? And same with the Black Power, with Black Panthers, right? And there was so many women, right? If you look at it, Black Panthers was probably one of the most progressive organizations for women.
Right, over half the organization.
So I wrap it up with that. Like if we, and so the reason why it's so dangerous because they made it the movement. They mischaracterized the movement so it can solely focus on one person. When in reality, right, it's not going to be just another King or Malcolm X or etc. It's going to be us coming together, working together, fighting for the collective freedom of our people.
Absolutely.
Can I chime in here about, because a brother made a point a little while ago about these careerists, like the the untalented 10th and these folks. And this playbook has been going down for a long period of time, at least since the 1960s, because, during the time when there was the Black arts movement, there was the Negro ensemble theater, and there's different streams of expression that are going on. One is very funded. The other is something that's happening even on flatbed trucks, like the way Amiri Baraka was doing it in Newark with people like Sun Ra and stuff like that. So there's one that's very grassroots, and another one that's kind of like an adjunct to white theater, so to speak, and it can get funding and things of that nature. And even in publishing, moving out of the 1960s into the 70s and into the 80s, even in publishing, some of these Black arts movement authors could not get published. I mean, world-renowned people like Amiri Baraka, I've heard in person sitting at a table with him saying, I can't get he's in the 1980s and stuff, I can't get a book published in the United States, yet what happened is moving from the 70s into the 80s is there's this rise of feminist media things and in publishing, where you see, Alice Walker and Tazaki Shange and people like this coming into prominence who are extremely talented writers. However, it's used as a rationale by the white status quo in order to move these other Black male radicals out of the picture and basically squash and censor what it is they're doing. So since we know that, and since we're seeing basically the 3.0 version of this happening, and since we've seen this come on the horizon, at least since Jacob Carruthers wrote Black Intellectual, what was it called? Intellectual Warfare.
Intellectual Warfare, yes. Everybody needs to get that.
Yeah. He told us what was happening in the academy. Did the exact same thing with the Africana and Black Studies departments, and then you see the rise of Michael Eric Dyson, Cornel West, and all the talking heads. Henry Louis, especially that fool, and so he end up on PBS, and it's okay for Cornell to be on the air with Don Lemon and people like that. But there are all these other brilliant scholars that you'll never see on the air. They're not going to put Ishmael Reed on the air because they can't control what Ishmael Reed is going to say, or any other number of people. Me personally, I'd like to see Mwalimu Baruti on TV, but I'm just saying, since we know this playbook so well and we can recount the history of it over a period of decades, what can we do to truncate this process, looking at solution here and somehow or another being able to identify these careerists in our midst? I work in the arts, in Oakland. I lived in Oakland for 40 years. And I got to the point where I was good at it, and I could look at folks and be like, I see what's up with this person. Because part of the personality that ends up doing that are the type of people that will come to you and act like they're a Pan-Africanist. They'll act like they're an African-centered person. They'll tell you whatever it is they need to. They tell you what you want to hear, and then they go back to the whatever the white status quo and tell them whatever they want to hear. They're career climbers, and so there's this type of double agent two-facedness about the thing for these type of career climbing people. So that's how they emerge. I'm saying that we need some sort of criteria to be able to identify people who are sincere and are actually doing working in the community. Yeah, a certain code that folks need to come up. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
And also, consequences.
I really want to jump in.
Through the gates.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that point as you're talking about to identify.
Laurent, I'm sorry. Technically, Laurent was up next, and then we'll let you come in after that.
Okay, go ahead. My apologies, brother. No, you good. No, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that that one thing that we can do is that these people they have a system. They're backed by money. They're on social media. However, we also have a system. It may not be as shiny and as bright, but we have people like T, people like Torrin, Rennie. Whenever there's a Jamila Lemuel that comes out with this type of article, there needs to be a response immediately. And what was so great about the response to this article is that you had black men, black women immediately jumping on this now, because the problem.
Oh man, we lost our brother. He'll be back.
Man.
Go ahead,
he'll be
Jamil.
back. Jamil, yeah. You're muted, bro.
Mute, brother.
Unmute your mic.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. No, I was looking for this tweet here. It was right to the point that it was just being made, sort of about, like I completely agree. Sort of have to be able to sort of pick out who these people are, because they will show their face. And I'll be really quick, and then I'll let Laurent go. But I remember Roxanne Gay once tweeted. So sometimes they can't help themselves. They do the quiet. They say the quiet part out loud, right? And she says, everyone has a price that they're willing to sell out for. Don't kid yourselves. And this is a tweet. I have it screenshotted somewhere because she's deleted it since then. Go figure. But she's literally admitting that, her ideology, right? Everyone has a price that they'll sell out for. And it's like, is this the kind of person who would admit that they're compromisable, who you want speaking for the masses, right? Is this the kind of person who you want being a voice for allegedly black freedom, for black suffering, for all these things? Right. Someone who openly admits that they have, who's a well-paid author, I might add, that they openly admit that they have a price from which they can be bought out to concede to a particular set of interests, right? These are the type of people.
No, I think that he's right, man. I think that, before this conversation, I was questioning. I was like, why would she put something out there like that, right? I mean, knowing that she's gonna just slam just a swap of black folks. But then I had to think about, well, why would Roxanne Gay immediately tack Birth of a Nation? Why would many of these black feminists jump up and just start just shitting on black men? And I think that I think that the young man was right, Jamel. It's about being a careerist. See, a lot of these people, they want to be in a position of an Oprah, of a Michael Eric Dyson. They're not about the community. T talks about it all the time. It's grifting. It's the content creation age at this moment, where it's like whatever they can do to get some shine, they'll do it. And so we know that. I mean, it's just like what Spike Lee said. He once said, if you want a microphone in your face, say something bad about black people, right? As a black person. And so she knew off the rip this was going to get some notice. She knew that the white editors at Vanity Fair would agree and have a taste for this. So it's not even about calling out black cis men, whatever you want to call us. It's about what can I do to catch fire and to immediately have a platform. And going back to what Jamel said, Roxanne Gay, she will sell out because the black community doesn't really mean anything to her. Whereas like a Torrin, I would never see him fix his face to write anything about black women in such a mass way. But they don't think of themselves that way though.
Yeah, and one thing else I want to bring into the conversation as well is, again, if you look at the personal histories of a lot of these people who are in the striver class, you're dealing with people who are dealing with trauma as
Strider
well.
class.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're dealing with people who've dealt with trauma. Roxanne Gay has been pretty open about the fact that she's dealt with sexual trauma. I think if you look at Jamila's piece, there's a small paragraph she wrote hidden in the piece where she talks about a sexual assault she's dealt with. A lot of people who are dealing with who are in this driver class who have this hostility towards black men are dealing with trauma that they've experienced from black men. And I want to say first and foremost that trauma is horrible and it's absolutely valid. But the issue here is instead of getting help for that, or instead of getting more help for the trauma that they're dealing with, they're given a platform to unload that trauma outside of
And
therapy
politicize it.
into the rest of the world. And all that does is to reinforce the image that white liberals already have about black men already, that we're either too unintelligent to really help ourselves or we're sexual predators and uncontrollable sexual beasts. So that doesn't help anybody and it doesn't help them and it doesn't help the collective.
Yeah, one of the things that I notice that a lot of these liberal feminists like to do, and it works, it actually works in a way that we have to begin to see in a much broader way. They pretend that cis black men are so separated from the community. And she spoke of this in her piece too, that we only think about ourselves and we have no connections with other people within the community. One of the ways that they do that is that they conflate black women with black feminism. So earlier we talked about, like, for example, Michelle Wallace, right? In her book, one of the ways that they were able to maintain Michelle Wallace peak is by suggesting that only black men critiqued Michelle Wallace, but that was untrue. Like, for example, you had Shirley Williams comment on the curve.
June Jordan.
June Jordan. You had Julianne Malvu. You had
her own mother, Faith Ringgold.
Her own mother. You had Frances Rogers Rose. The preface to the Black Woman.
The Frances Rogers Rose. I love her. Yeah.
Yes.
She's in Virginia.
Right. Literally, they all had these these criticisms of Michelle Wallace. And so oftentimes they are able to pretend that all black women are black feminists and that all black women disagree with black men. That's not the case. And just like Dr. Travis pointed out earlier with the movements in SNCC and LCSC, like, they had a lot of contradictions, right? But the majority of those organizers were black women. It's not like, and though they had contradictions with the leadership and everything like that, majority of those organizers were black women. When you get to the Black Power movement and the Black Panthers, so many black women in leadership. So what they're able to do is impute this sort of antagonization that really doesn't exist, and they conflate black women with black feminism. So it makes it seem like to attack black feminism is to attack black women. It's the same thing they do with the relationships between cishet men, gay, queer, trans men. Like they make it appear that, like, there's this automatic antagonization, and if straight black men are speaking, they're only speaking for straight black men. So
that's why I started with this. You know, I tweeted this book earlier, but I started, and you were late coming in as my co-host, but I actually started the program with telling people that black feminism is not the only theory for black women to describe our eras. In fact, it's not even African centered. Right. It's not even really genuinely from black women. To me, I view black feminism as blackface on feminism, which is rooted in white supremacy. Now, I know everybody on this panel may not agree with that, and there's people who will certainly take huge offense to that, but that's my reading of the word, period. I've never identified as a black feminist. I've always aligned with Africana womanism as articulated by Clenora Hudson Weenie. So I just wanted to add that for people who are watching this, please know that black feminism is not the end all be all. In fact, Valethia Watkins, who is the director of the Women's Studies program at Howard University, has actually written about this. That it's an essentialism. It's like if you're not a black feminist, then you're oppressing black women. And they try to basically act like this doesn't exist.
Yeah, it used to be funny on the college campuses. They would actually ask these very general questions. Like, that's how they would sort of like converge you into feminism. They would say something like, hey, do you believe in equality for women? You'll be like, of course. Do you believe in women's right to choose? Of course. Like, oh, you're a feminist, just like that. And now you know, and now it's like, you can agree with all that. You can do, you literally could agree with all that, have all the talking points. Evelyn Simeon actually has a piece with a lot of empirical data that suggests that Black men actually adhere to feminist tenets more so than Black women. But you can adhere to all that. But the very idea that you don't see yourself in theories like intersectionality means that you're anti-Black women. So it's just interesting.
I'm sure many of the academics on the panel are already familiar with this little sort of aerial view I'm going to give of this progress, but I'm hopefully for the audience to do something here. So a lot of feminist theory came into the academy during the early 1980s, during the culture wars and the rise of post-structuralist philosophy, like French philosophers. Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida, et cetera, and so forth. And a lot of this, Jacques Lacan and these type of folks, right? And it became very, very popular in the academy, along with these other Frankfurt philosophy schools.
Bro, can I just say that I be ready to throw up every time I hear their names? Because they act like they are the gods, like Foucault.
I know. Yeah, no, I hear you. There's a lot of, but what happens is people got rewarded. A lot of Black folks got rewarded for basically filtering the Black experience through this French post-structural philosophy lens. And so they get published, they get legitimized. Yeah, Judith Butler they utilize that type of information. Yeah, they utilize that stuff in your footnote, that kind of stuff in your papers, and you will get published, and folks will look at you for tenure and those type of things. And what it was a bulwark against the rise of African-centered thinking at that particular time, Afrocentricity at that particular time, and Africana womanism, and these brilliant sisters who were coming, through the academy at that time, beginning to write things, right? And so here again, there are people that are given this reward and let through the gates, and then they become gatekeepers, and they bandy the word around essentialism, and begin to superimpose that on the Black experience. So therefore, if you talk about the Black or Africana experience, and you're not talking about, queer theory, et cetera, and so forth, you're an essentialist, and that's tantamount to calling you, exactly, you're tantamount to a bigot and a toxic whatever, bigot because you haven't done that. And so this has been a long time coming. So when up until this point now, you have young 20-somethings in the academy that probably are not aware of that history. When they get to the academy, they get into an academy that has already been basically swept clean of Black consciousness and Africana thought and African-centered thought a generation or two before they got there. And so they're thinking that this is the entire ocean of thought surrounding Black women. And so to Sister Zakia's point, Clenora Hudson Weems doesn't even come into the picture. 9 out of 10 of them haven't even heard of her.
Ain't never heard of it. In the activist spaces, in these nonprofit spaces, the vast majority of these young sisters have never even heard of Africana womanism, and they've never heard of Clenora Hudson Weems.
They all know Kimberly Crenshaw, though.
They know Kimberly Crenshaw.
They all know.
If I can build on your argument, brother, like there are 2 papers that everyone in this chat can look up now. One is much longer than the other, but one is by Dr. Tommy Curry. It's called Black Studies, Not Morality. The other is by Sylvia Winter, how we mistook the map for the territory.
That's classic.
Yeah, right. So in this brilliant analysis that Winter does, she describes everything that the brother just talked about, right? So what you get, so you have a Black arts and a Black power movement, right? And so you have this reemergence of consciousness around Blackness and beauty, right? Trying to sort of like reverse the idea that everything that Black is bad, everything that's white is right. But as he stated earlier, with the rise of post-structuralism and this transition from material conditions to looking at oppression through language and speech acts, what you get is someone like Henry Louis Gates, who goes on to disavow, the John Henry Clarks, the Dr. Ben
all the African warrior scholars.
So Black studies in its original form became negated. And she basically mentions that due to Henry Louis Gates, due to the rise of Black feminism, this is why you had the end of Black studies in its original form. Now, what you have in Black studies is what the brother just spoke of, the post-structuralist discourse, language, speech act discourse that you have now. And this movement is one of the reasons why you see a lot of what you see today. And I would really encourage everyone to look into those papers and read them. For years, people have tried
Say them
to.
again. There are people in the chat asking, and maybe you can put it in the comments. Do
Yeah.
you have
So
access to that?
one of the papers is called Black Studies, Not Morality by Dr. Tommy Curry. The second one is by Sylvia Winter, who many people have tried to say is a feminist, but plenty of times she has said she's not a feminist. She's been extremely critical of feminism.
But
That
Redney, she
paper
is a Black woman, therefore she's a Black feminist, which is this is the argument they make.
But exactly. But that paper is called "How We Mistook the Map for the Territory," which is another way of saying how we've looked at the symptom as the problem. And a lot of these things that we're actually looking at are surface level, and they're not actually the problem. So she's really building an argument around recentering the consciousness of Black folk and coming up with a different understanding and genre of being for Black folks. So
that's exactly right. And Trevor, I know you were trying to come in. I'm getting ready to pull up this bingo because, brother, this is brilliant. I'm sorry.
No problem. But I had some notes on things that people were saying. Like people were dropping a lot of knowledge. I didn't want to interrupt anybody, and I wanted to hear everybody speak. But everyone was saying a lot of good stuff. And one thing that Quadro said about Foucault and everything, I'm not sure if he invented the bodies thing, but if not, he either invented it or he popularized it. But they say bodies now all the time when it's not necessary. And I think that's an example of how they're taking stuff from all this white academic trends and putting it into Black stuff. And Torin and Quadro were both talking about Torin used the word HNIC, and Quadro used another example. And the way I've come to think about it is managers. They want to be appointed the managers of Black people versus say union reps. Like a union rep is a grassroots thing. The workers have to elect you, but the manager is someone that the boss or the owner picks, and that person is appointed. You don't have to get the people behind you to do it. But on top of that, if you're going to be a manager, you can't be too cool with the people in the trenches, because if you're too buddy with the rank and file worker, the owners and the top people aren't going to look at you as a good manager. So I think people like Jamila Lemieux and Brittany Cooper and everything, I think they almost court the backlash from Black people just to kind of let the white people see, look, these people don't love me like that. That lets you know I'll put a boot on their neck for you. You know what I mean? Like these rank and file people, they don't love me like that. But the problem is, if the rank and file workers hate you too much, then you're not a good manager either. Like they don't want someone that's, so they have to do a balancing act between, I'm kind of a Negro whisperer, I have my finger on the pulse of the people, so let me manage, but also the people also kind of hate me too because I'm willing to put my foot on their neck. So it's like someone like Dave Chappelle, he's kind of like a class clown, but the class loves the class clown, but they're the hall managers, they're the teacher's pets. The other kids hate them, but the teacher and whatever, and they don't care about what the other kids think. They just want to get that top-down approval, and that's a.
Can I ask something though, T? So you're saying that they're just essentially kind of showing out for white folks, and with this backlash, of just Black people just saying no, this is not right. Do you think that the white people know that they're showing out for them, or are they oblivious, or do they just not even care?
All I know is when I see black people push back, I see a lot of the white people start lecturing us. I'm sure everyone here
Yeah,
on
ain't that
Twitter
some
has
shit?
seen it, where they'd be like, "Well, actually, she's just saying this," and they're lecturing you
Yeah,
about the black community and
of
everything. So,
I
course.
like,
had to
I
cuss
call
I
it.
that
seen a
white
white
lady
dude
out on
say
your
that.
Oh,
page,
yeah,
Trevor.
yeah, you saw that one, and I
Yeah,
call them the referees of
I
reality.
had
Like
to
white
cuss
people just
her
think
out.
that are referees of everybody. Like they can just come into any group's discussion and just pull out yellow cards and flags and call.
Hmm.
Hey,
It's
this is
it's
why I'm glad some of this stuff happened online, because I might just react if we was in real life and just like
yep,
do
yep.
something like, oh, just like
Kwame in the comments said overseers, and that's great. I'm ashamed that I didn't think about that. That's exactly what it is. They want to be overseers over the
Yeah,
plantation. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Torrin wanted to get in, and then we're gonna welcome in our brother Floyd. Go ahead, Torrin.
All right, Trevor, I wanted to you said something a minute ago about like how they want to be overseers. There's a film everybody here should see called Trick Baby from the 70s. There's a scene in
Mm,
this movie where there's a group of white liberals and white conservatives sitting around a dinner table talking about how best to manage black people. And they basically say that what you do is you pull a black person out of the ghetto and you introduce them to white creature comforts and you indoctrinate them into like the boy to move around white society. And what you do doing that is that you remove them so far enough from their people that they no longer relate to them, but you get them so addicted to creature comforts that they become one of you in blackface. That's what you're dealing
right,
with when you're dealing with Brittany Cooper and you're dealing with Jamila. But that's
right.
one thing. The second thing I wanted to talk about is you said Chappelle is sort of like a class clown, and that's true. But I see Chappelle as more like the court jester who can speak truth to power as long as you keep them joking, but there's truth lodged in his jokes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of academics, or I call them academics, are afraid of, because he can speak to the general public without having to go through the I don't want to say the rigor, but going through the snake pit that a lot of people went through to try to get to these degrees to say that I'm the HNIC and I can speak for everybody else. So they hate that part of it too. Now, what I want to talk about really is language. Um, I think there's something. I think I talked about it on the space yesterday. I come to writing through working on the periphery of the music business and through PR, and there's something that happens with language called flattening. And what that is when you take a term that means something, like just say Black Studies. If you told somebody in the 70s what Black Studies meant, that was a very hard, solid term about what that meant. That meant studies based in Black reality, moving Black history and Black logic and Black worldview into the white academy. That was a solid platform. That was a solid thing that meant something. What flattening does is it takes a term and it completely removes it from its original meaning to the point where you can make it mean anything.
Hmm.
And what that means, like just say intersectionality. Intersectionality was a very finite set of ideas, a set of structures that was put in place when Kimberly Crenshaw created that term. What's happened with intersectionality is that it's been removed from its original academic meaning and its meaning to the public, and through social media and through academic flattening in theory, means absolutely nothing at this point. It means so much and it's taken on so many other terms that it means absolutely nothing at this point. So anything can be intersectionality. The same thing that's
Hmm.
happened with Black studies. Anything is Black studies at this point, to the
Hotep
point where it
too.
doesn't mean anything
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
Become a
Hotep just
brand.
means you're not intersectional now. That's all that
Yeah, I
means.
was about to say Hotep basically is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Hotep
there's a lot.
actually had it a meaning, and now it just means any nigga that's straight.
Yeah, pretty much. And
I'm
what's sad about
Hotep.
that what's sad about that is when you take a term, when you divorce a term from its meaning, the people who divorce the term from its meaning control the meaning of that term. And that's what you're
Hmm.
Right.
dealing with when it comes to Black studies, when it comes to the term of Hotep, when it comes to cishet Black. A lot of these terms don't really mean anything anymore because the people who bandy these terms around don't really understand. First of all, they don't know anything. They haven't researched the true meaning of it. So they use them as sticks that beat everybody's head over with. And that's what's happening right now. When you think of Black studies, you automatically think of LGBTQ studies, or you think of not women's, but gender studies. And gender just means could mean any gender, but it's come to as sort of like a shorthand term for female studies. That's what's
Exactly.
happening. And until people start claiming, until we start making people realize that words mean things and reclaim the original meanings of things, you're going to have this confusion because you have generations of people now who are going into the academy, going into getting all the information off social media, who aren't doing this research. So the people who are
Right.
giving them this research are the opportunists and the climbers and the wannabe trick babies. And that's the danger. And that's what has to be stopped.
Can I say
Ron, do you
real
have
quick?
final comments real quick? Because I know you need to leave.
Oh,
Okay.
man, like want to be trick babies. Yeah, listen, I've enjoyed everyone's contribution. I learned a lot. Zakia, thank you so much. This space is is needed, and you and Rainey have been masterful in the way that you've moderated it. So I hope this is recorded so I can play it back
Definitely
and
record
to
it.
just and to just take note. So I would just say to every Black person, know that you have a voice. Know that you may not have the platform of a Jamila or a Brittany Cooper, but we need to start speaking out on this, because one ripple can make a tidal wave if we all make our voices be heard in opposition to this slanderous talk. So thank you so much.
Peace to you, brother. Thank you. Floyd, welcome, brother. Floyd Jarvis, my brother from NYC. Introduce yourself to the audience real quick and make your comment, brother.
Peace, y'all. Can y'all hear me clearly?
Yep.
Yes.
Right, good. So firstly, thank you, Zakia, for inviting me on this panel. I almost forgot to check in. I was watching some YouTube on brother Watani Stinner from the Us organization. I was watching some stuff on him. Then I remember, I'm like, hold on, I'm supposed to be somewhere. So I'm glad to be here with many of y'all. Peace to Rain. Who else we got there? Artemisia, I see you. Hold on, forgive me with the names. I'm better on Facebook with the names. But yeah, so we Hood Scholar, what's up? Rennie, what's up? What's up? Trevor, Rezi, was good. All right, so we talking about the Jamila LaRue article from Vanity Fair, right?
Yep.
I with a lot of these histories, I don't be liking to read it and get into it, but
Exactly.
you have to read it. So I went through it. I read it. And the part that stuck with me was she didn't cite the source for when Brittany Cooper said that there's this empathy gap. Like that's what I was looking for. Immediately I'm looking for the empirical evidence that she brought up with this empathy gap. I'm like, oh, she didn't cite that source from Brittany Cooper, the same person or scholar, pseudo scholar whose scholarship has been called into question. It's the same scholar that said Trump policies caused her to intake more calories when she was like that before. So, from right there, I said, I'm gonna put this on pause, and I skimmed through the rest, and I'm like, this is, yeah, this, but yeah, so that's where we at.
Yeah, man.
That's a
sorry.
classic.
That was. Hey, I remember when
That
I
was a
was
classic.
like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, are these people serious right now?
Right. That's wild.
Brother Quadwo, I think you was trying to get in. What was your other
Oh,
comment?
the brothers have been making such good points that a couple of things went past like a few minutes ago. I also wanted to just add, like, the term intersectionality has become kind of like this brand, whereas it's also just a dog whistle for queer theory. Whereas intersectionality is supposed to include class, ableism, and all these other things that never come up in these people's conversations. They don't think about these folks at all. At least I don't see them talking about that kind of thing. It just seems to be focused very much on, gender and sexuality, and particularly focused on queer theory. So the folks that haven't read Kimberly Crenshaw, that's what that flattening for them means, brother Terrain. It just means this. I'm talking about queer theory now when I say intersectionality. Another thing, one of the brothers asked the question: that do white folks know that they're doing this sort of manipulation, either passive aggressively or intentionally, when they choose these gatekeepers and these various people, and are they aware of the phenomenon that's going on? And it reminded me of this quote by Judith Butler. She was talking with Angela Davis in 2017 at the Oakland Book Fair. Okay, and I'm just going to read part of it. She says, as someone who's worked in lesbian, gay, trans activism for many years, I, like many other people, had mixed feelings about the Equality Act of the equality movement within the lesbian gay community. And I'm going to call it lesbian gay because I think that is exactly what that movement was. It was pushing for marriage rights. And I was thinking what happened to the notion of equality when equality became identified with gay marriage rights. Quote, I watched as the idea of property ownership became the center of the idea of freedom and equality, unquote. Quote, but it was also, I think, a predominantly white movement as well. And even though they were talking about equality as they talked, it was another tradition of the struggle for racial equality that struck me as effaced or as backgrounded as that became the new equality discourse, unquote. So even someone like Judith Butler, who is very much at the center of creating these theories, these queer theories and stuff, she can see this phenomenon happening in these various movements like the gay marriage movement, et cetera, and so forth. So if she's able to see it, there are many other people who are able to see it and be manipulative in regards to it. So
that's important, man. I really appreciate you sharing that quote. And I'm glad it's recorded on this live so we know that we have it. But I wanted to bring up, because people in the chat have been asking about that. They're like, oh, I got to see that. So, Torrin, I appreciate you for sharing this clip where you talked about the trick baby. So I'm going to play it. It's a little bit over a minute. So I'm going to try to share my screen here in the audio, just so the audience because I haven't seen it either. This will be my first time seeing it. You know, I'm a geriatric millennial, so I don't remember Trick Baby. But let me, all right. Oh shit. Hold on. I forgot to share the audio. Yeah. Sorry about that, y'all. Give me a minute.
It's a wild scene for the 1970s for them to put that out there like that, but let the audience see it.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that time period, it was jumping because Spook Who Sat by the Door wasn't that far from there either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you liberals who have lifted them up, Howard.
Paul, you conservatives make a mistake. You can't afford to strangle hope in people. Without hope, people become dangerous.
No, Howard, you liberals have let them invade our society. You give them jobs, political jobs.
Paul, you missed the point. It's only the smart ones we move up.
That makes it even worse.
No, we have to move them up. If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us. But if we raise him up into white society, we neutralize him. He feels compelled to try to act like us. He loses his identity and his racial anger, if he has any. He becomes alien to his brothers. They realize he sold them out and they grow to hate him. He becomes worthless to them and safe for us. No, thank you. In fact, in his love for the creature comforts, except for his color, he's become one of us.
Wow. That's exactly what the fuck happened. And you know what? Without even actually seeing this, y'all, I already have a different type of disdain for liberals. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's crazy.
Hey, can I say something about that?
Good.
Because let me just, and I think y'all, just my story real quick. I actually used to be a professor at VCU and I got kicked out because probably what I was teaching. And I think it's because I was teaching this. So if everybody read this, Miseducation of Negro by Carter G. Woodson, right?
I've read it.
So I probably read that book like 10 times now. And so when I was teaching it, Carter G. Woodson laid out in detail that very strategy that was just in that movie, right? So what happened, we all know the story. They was losing power during slavery, right? They was like, okay, we cannot maintain physical power over them. So we need to, what can we do? We can control their minds. So then let's control the education system, right? Because remember, Carter G. Woodson, he did a systematic study from kindergarten all the way to higher education.
Yeah.
And what he showed was how the education system from kindergarten to higher education was intricately designed for them to maintain control of white supremacy.
Period.
And so what they did, right, is like, oh, we cannot enslave them, we can't beat them, but if we can control a man's action, if we can control a man's thoughts, and we can control a man the way he thinks, then we can control his actions. So what they did, they took the education system to create, basically to make educated Negroes, as he called them, educated Negroes, white. And the trick of the enemy, right? I like to say it that way. Ever since 1905, 1910, 1920, and we can make them white, then we can have the black educated people to go back to their people and apparently teach a black education, but in reality, it's just the same white education system that they're teaching to their people. And that way now, black people are carrying on. And this is, it's crazy because remember, he wrote this in 1934. And this is exactly what's going on today. And I close with this. He said the reason why, there are some black people who will become aware of this, but these educated Negroes, he called them educated, they would not say anything because this too would mess up their role in the system.
I want to add something about that clip as well. Like, I think has changed in that clip, and I think it was true at the time. They said, you have to get the smart ones, and keep you from
Yeah.
becoming a leader. They don't get the smart ones anymore.
Yeah.
They get the educated ones. They get because
Yeah.
educated and smart aren't always the same thing. There's a lot of people who are not educated but are
They're
really
rarely
smart.
the same thing.
And
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot of
And you see
educated
it.
dummies. So yeah, I mean that's why I said the untalented chant. These people are educated dummies. And the second thing I think is different is they said that the people resent them. Their own people resent them because they sold out. But these people aren't even sellouts because the sellout, you have to buy in at some point. These people have never bought in. So now the people resent them not because they sold out, because no one thinks that Roxanne Gay or Brittany Cooper was ever on their side. Like now we resent them because these people never even bought in from jump, And what did I want to say about what Floyd said too? He was talking about the empathy gap and all that stuff. And I will tell you, man, if they talk about trauma, but if you read abuse literature, that is what they do. They do abuser tactics. And one thing an abuser or a cheater does is they project. It's a cliche, but they project. And everything that they do to you, they say that you did it first. So now they have an excuse to say that this is why I'm doing it to you. So I mean everything. Like when when a cheater is it when someone's a cheater, like they wish I accuse you of cheating, or they say that you did something that made them cheat, you weren't paying them attention. But I mean everything. Like when they said the black men censor themselves, all we see is these people censor themselves and ask to be leaders of every movement. When they accuse a black man in that article of excluding themselves into their own community and leaving everyone else out, but in practice, all we see is they want to create a community of everybody but straight black men. Like that's what they want the political movement to be. And straight black men who have said they've been in Black Lives Matter have said they've felt the active marginalization. And Travis will testify to that. I heard him on Colin. He was talking about that the other day.
They eliminated black men from their characterization of the black family on their website. They've since removed it.
They since removed that because there was so much pushback from black women and just the black community in general. Like, are y'all fucking crazy?
Yep. And that was all I had to say. That was it.
Well, this has been great, you guys. We have gone over time a little bit. I so appreciate you all. This, to me, had to be done. And I wanted to center black men because you all were the ones who were attacked, period. And specifically, she attacked straight black men. Let's just be honest about that, right? And for me, when I see things like that, especially with people who have been propped up, like we heard what the white liberals had to say, they plucked these people, from the community. Well, now actually they groom them from children. You know what I mean? Like, and specifically, I have to say this because I'll be talking about this in much more depth on Wednesday around bedroom colonialism, which is going to be very controversial. But there's a lot of even, black people who have a white parent, right? And so that piece is also a part of this as well. Even though biologically the sister out of Oakland, Quadwell, you and I have talked about this, Alicia Garza, does not have a biological white parent, but her stepfather was white. And she grew up actually in Marin. Very middle class, upper middle class, right?
Yep.
So a lot of people don't know that, but people in the nonprofit industrial space, we know that, right?
The people in Oakland know that.
And the people
why don't they ever say upper middle class people shouldn't lead? Because I would be okay with that shit.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm like, you want to say straight black men don't lead? How about you upper middle class Negro peons not lead?
I would be okay with that shit if they said that.
Me too.
Right. Right.
That'll make pillow talk uncomfortable.
Right, exactly. Let's talk about that because I'm having brother Dr. Talawa. He's coming on. He's gonna go all the way in on that because he's very comfortable in that subject. So that's on Wednesday. If people want to come back at 8 p.m. Same channel. But I want to appreciate the chat. The chat has been off the chain. Everybody has been very supportive. I tried to highlight some of the comments and everything. But this has been great. I appreciate each and every one of you and what you all bring to the space. I actually learned something about each and every one of you tonight that I did not know before. So I'm grateful for that. But I wanted to allow each and every one of you just a closing comment, and then we'll wrap up for tonight because we did go over a little bit. And I appreciate y'all for staying with me. Torrin, you're up first, brother.
I saw something in the chat that I want to mention, and I think it's important.
Okay.
I think it's very important that we have these conversations amongst ourselves, but I also think it's important to let the outlets who publish this poison know how we feel as well. So I think we need to be sure that we reach out to people like Vanity Fair, find out who's on the editor's board, and let the people at Vanity Fair and all these other platforms that let this stuff cook, let them know how we feel and let them know that we don't want that.
I agree. So we can do that on Twitter. We can do a campaign, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Travis?
Yeah, y'all. Hey, so real quick, I'm with the IBFA, International Black Freedom Alliance. International Black Freedom Alliance. We believe that Black people are smart enough, talented enough, got the skills and talents necessary in order to get us free. So I just want to plug my organization, and I would close with this: we need Black media, right? Fuck white media, right? I'm sorry if I can, but like forget Vanity Fair, all that, right? We need to have our own Black media, not Black news channel, because all Black news channels pushing the same racist propaganda as everybody else. So that's all I'm gonna close with. We had our own Black media where we can get our own stuff out to our people, and we can fight back all these white racist narratives. That would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you, brother. Brother Quadwell.
Yeah, I am so much in agreement with you in regards to self-determined Black media and Black voices. There's a brother on the continent in Ghana, Obadeli Cambone, has a site called Abibi Tumi Casa, and he doesn't mess with anybody else's social media. No European, no Urugu social media at all. And so maybe partnering with him, helping him expand what he's doing, or getting various groups that are very independent and forming a coalition of media, so that we don't have to use Urugu media at all in order to get our voices out. Anytime we do something, everybody else follows behind us. Oftentimes this is why these so-called youth culture is really something that starts with grassroots Black culture and black youth and white youth, et cetera, and so forth, and POCs follow suit behind it. Hip hop is a prime example of that. So if we were to do something like that in media, trust me, it'll have legs, and it'll be the voice on a global level. There was something else I was going to say, and his comment kind of just knocked it out of my head, but that really was on my mind. That's the thing that we should be focused on and gaining our voice as a solution. Oh yeah, I just remembered this. So in just in regards to keeping upper middle class or upper middle class folks out of organizing and not organizing, but being in the center of these spaces and becoming leadership, what we could do is ensure that grassroots, lumpen proletariat, folks who have shown leadership qualities in the community are surrounded by folks that can provide them with like the administrative and academic, et cetera, so forth, a cadre of advisors. But this other person from the community is always the visible one. And what that will do is that will show other grassroots lumpen proletariat folks that, we can be the leadership as well. And so we surround them and become whoever this person, the sister or brother's support in order to make that happen.
Yeah. I appreciate that, brother Quadwell. Can you put the brother out of Ghana's information in a private chat? Torrin would like the link with him, and probably the other brothers as well. All right, I want to bring up brother Jamil.
Once again, thanks for having me. I think there was just a ton of insight, ton of knowledge that everyone shared. I think everyone made really good points. I always like Trevor's little metaphor, the one about the referee that was really funny. But I also think there's just a lot of different insight to some things I hadn't considered. I think just what I try to take with me every day is sort of just like, what are you doing to serve community? And that's like the question I would just pose to anyone. And by community, I particularly mean the Black community. I hope you're not serving the white community. But what are you doing to serve community? Get tapped in with your community. And then also just, if you're a very online person like I am, like I know a lot of us are, it is incredibly important just for us to push back these narratives. You know, Rennie and I, T as well, we can turn as well. We can all attest, you know, what, 2-3 years ago when, you know, you couldn't even say like, hey guys, I think this might be a little like unfair to say about black men. You couldn't even say that without you know, just a massive, you know, dog pile. And now a lot of people are starting to see, I thought this was a little bit off, but I didn't really have the language for it. You know, I thought this was a bit off that they were saying, but I wasn't quite sure if it was my place to speak on it. And I definitely came from a place sort of too, sort of like you, Travis, where, you know, you sort of kind of, you as a grad student, you kind of drink the black feminist Kool-Aid, right? And, you know, this is just what you're sort of indoctrinated with. And you definitely have questions like, dang, like, is there any place in this literature for me to talk, like, for me? And it's like, you know, it gets a little odd, right? And then when you ask questions, it's sort of like, yeah, all you have to do is just shut up, listen, and center us. And it's like, wait, like, but last time, you know, you look around you and you see all these people, I can't tell you the countless amount of black dudes I grew up with in high school, middle school, who are no longer with us. Like, it's incongruent, right, with my lived experience, with my reality. And so I'm glad that we're able to sort of have these, you know, we're able to push back. And I encourage everyone to continue to sort of, to do that self-exploration, to, you know, connect in your community and, you know, continue to build and push back on any of these pathological narratives that we see.
You damn right. We're going to always push back on these pathological narratives that increase the toxic environment already for black men and boys, for their murder, not just by the state, but by vigilantes. I can't say that enough. Okay. And so I will certainly always use my platform to push back on those harmful narratives as a mother of a black son who's 14 years old, and certainly as a wife of a black man, for sure. Trevor, brother, I'm bringing you up, but during your closing comments, you gonna tell us about this daggone bingo game. Let me share it. It was fucking hilarious, bro. Oh my god.
Okay, yeah. So the bingo game, because one thing that I think gets lost in the mix is like, and this is why I said that it's changed. It's not about the smart people, just about educated dummies. Is that these people aren't even talented anymore. That's why I call them the untalented 10th. And this is a bingo card that I made like over a year ago. So it's not like I read the article and I reverse engineered the bingo card. I just saw these people just write articles like Mad Libs. I don't know if I'm dating myself. I don't know if young people still play Mad Libs. Mad Libs was just like a fill in the blank game you used to do, and you just throw in words into a pre-written script. Like, these people are human bots. They're just like they're like flesh bots. They just write articles like an algorithm. And so I had this thing ready, and Jamila's piece was the first piece that I tested the bingo card on, and I got bingo. If you jump to the very bottom,
I'm about to go through it. Hold on.
Yeah, barbershops as a site of oppression is one. A name drop of Octavia Butler saying that you're so tired. I don't know why they're always so tired for some reason. At some point, you know, I don't know if they need some coffee or what, but they're always tired. Well, God knows why. Bringing up hair for no reason. The words bodies and spaces is always there. And I'm like, how do these editors keep paying them money for the same article over and over again?
The bro went in, y'all. This shit is thorough.
Yeah, but
because they're scared.
Sometimes it changes. Like a couple of years ago, there might have been a phrase or two that was trendy, that was different, that's gone now. But 90% of it is the same for like over a year. So you see the little yellow things. I went through the article and just kept, and I got about 10 squares. Like I got like.
Nah, so tired and big letters is killing me. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah. And I might switch out some of them because it's giving is a strong contender to get on.
Man.
Oh yeah,
it's giving jealousy or thirst.
Yeah.
Ooh,
New
yo,
one,
Trevor, where you from, bro?
Nah, but it's funny. It's speaking of what you said about these articles being really predictable and sort of regurgitated. I remember when I saw the headline, and it's funny. I don't really interact with Jamila, like even on Twitter. I sort of just avoid her. And I quote tweeted, and I just said, "LOL," like without even reading this article, I know what it's about just based off the headline. And she quote tweets me like, "There's no way you could know what this headline is about." And I just go, I go to the article and I just screenshot the very first like 5 words of this article, and I'm like, "This is literally." The same article that's been written for the last 6 years. Like it's the same exact article, straight why blah blah blah. It's the VSB article. Just it's the same straight black white. It's the same VSB article. What's the title? Straight black men are the white people. That whole
white people.
It's the exact same article, just with a different example used. It's the same article.
Bro, the person that invented that phrase just got a TV writing gig. So get ready for some dumb show to come out because all these people get tapped to do like so-called
media. And all of them write for white people. So
yeah. Someone in the chat asked, "Where can we find the bingo card?" If you go to on Twitter, Champagne Sharks.
Let me show your Twitter handle. Hold on, let me go.
Yeah, I made it my pinned tweet. So you can generate your own randomized bingo card and read along with articles.
Sharks, everybody, right here.
Yeah, the very last tweet in the thread has a link where you can like print your own bingo card. You can make your own blank bingo card and randomize the spaces, so you can play it with friends. Just next show that comes out that it's like HBO Max that they say is for black people, and it's full of this crap. Just
I see it.
Watch along.
This is it right here, y'all. You can create your own bingo right here, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a link in the very last tweet in the thread, so you can make your own bingo cards, and it'll randomize the entries. So yeah,
that's brilliant.
I'm telling you, it works like every time.
Yeah, that was brilliant, man. I'm telling you, I laughed so hard. I reshared that like 30 times. I'm like, this is it right here.
I want to say one more thing. Never discount the power of ridicule. Sometimes some of this stuff is so ridiculous that the only way you can really combat it is with ridicule. That's why it was brilliant. And these people are so self-centered and so self-important that ridicule probably would
very thin-skinned.
Yeah, that ridicule would probably destroy them faster than anything. I think it was I think Jamel was the one who mentioned the guy who wrote "The Straight Black Men Are the White People of Black People." I actually had a run-in with him about a year ago online. He said something and I said something else, and he tried to say that I wasn't intelligent enough to understand what he was talking about, and I said, "Yeah."
They love taking that route.
They love check it out. Look, that's what white liberals do. Yeah.
This is what I did. I said, "I tell you what, let's do a Zoom. You bring your evidence, and I'll bring mine, and the winner has to pay $100 to the charity of our choice." And I never heard from him again.
He don't got no evidence. He don't got no evidence. He don't got no evidence.
Come on in, Floyd.
He told me to be well, and I ain't heard from him since.
His evidence is vibes. That's all these people have is vibes. That's it.
Hey, Trevor was flaming somebody online. Who was that? Was that Brittany Cooper?
Yes, that's the one I commented too. Trevor was flaming the shit out of her.
Hey, Trevor, where you from, bro? I just gotta know, man.
Oh, I'm from New York.
Oh, okay, yeah. What, in the 5 boroughs?
Yeah. I'm from Queens, but I lived in Brooklyn longer than I lived in Queens.
I'm like, yeah, you've been around the block.
Floyd in New York too. Y'all need to hook up.
Oh yeah,
for real, Floyd, I know you joined late, but give us your final comments too, brother, and where people can follow you.
I'm on Facebook, Floyd Jarvis. I'm on IG, just like a Shumba. I actually don't have a Twitter. I'm gonna set up one because I gotta watch that
I don't know,
that joint I did yesterday. I
gotta watch that Spaces was amazing. Yeah, definitely watch that.
Yeah. And I wanted to say something. So like I said, prior I was watching this stuff on the Us organization and on Elder Watani Stenner.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about this Jamila LaRue article. It further notifies me that COINTELPRO is still going on. It's just
we talked about that. Yep.
See, we on the same page. It's just in different shape, different sizes, different wavelengths, but it's the same tactics. If you study their mistakes and what they learned, it's the same thing going on. The same foreign entities coming into urbanized zones. You mentioned the class differences, the leadership, all those things are still happening. So just be aware, always be aware of it, and
for sure
keep putting your foot on their necks and your hands in their pockets. And anytime you think that you're going too hard, go even harder.
That's right. That's my energy. Seriously. My co-host, Brother Rennie, definitely want to hear from you, brother.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank each and every one of the panelists. I want to thank everyone who is viewing, and I just want to like definitely give our sister Zakia her flowers.
Definitely, brother.
This sister has truly been, a paragon of like excellence, and she has like 2, 3 shows that she does, and she always committed to us black men, but to black community in particular, and above all else. And so I just wanted to give her flowers because Lord knows, she has been in the trenches as an organizer, as a black intellectual, as a thought leader. So I definitely wanted to give you your flowers. And I just wanted to say, I appreciate everyone on this panel. You can find me on the Resistance Noir, the Squad podcast. I'm a co-host along with Jamil and our brother Q. So you can find me there. I'm at Ringy Teray on Twitter. And peace, peace and love, peace and love.
That's what it's all about, is peace and love.
One more thing.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Floyd.
I remember what I had to say.
Okay.
Someone either tagged me or messaged me that the Champagne Sparks bingo game for the Black.
It might have been me. I sent it to a whole bunch of people.
Watch this. This is how locked in on code I am. Once I saw Black creatives, I didn't read it.
Yeah, that word is a big red flag, so I don't blame you.
Even though
creative
I'm
and multi-hyphenate are like two red
even though I'm very
words,
creative,
man.
but once I saw it, I said, nah, this can't be for me. It's a mistake. That's what I wanted to say.
No, that's hilarious. Next time I got to make sure I put a description so you know if it's coming from me, it's something you need to read, brother.
You can't plug it out, man. You can't trip it.
No, man, this has been great. I appreciate each and every one of you, brothers. I value each and every one of you. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thanks, Torrin, for putting that. Make sure you all get the information for the editor from Vogue out of the private chat, and we can definitely let her know that we certainly don't appreciate the attack on one half of our community, and certainly it's anti-blackness, and we're not gonna. That basically the black community, those of us who have not been picked by COINTELPRO, do not approve. Okay, so that's something that we need to do for sure.
I want to say one more thing. I don't know if this is true or not, but people have told me in media, and maybe Torrin and might know better because he knows more about media. But some people have told me that they tune out a lot of tweets and social media these days and just leave it to the social media manager to deal with, and that sometimes old-fashioned handwritten letters actually carry more weight because they don't get as
I'm
much
getting
of
ready
that.
to put her Twitter and her email in the chat since the people have asked. I got my sister Denise Young.
Yeah, actual like written out emails might be a better
so here's her
thing
Twitter.
to do.
Can you tell us? Can you pronounce her name for the audience, Torrin? Because I was wondering if she was black, but you said she's.
I'm not quite sure, but it's Radhika.
Radhika
Jones
she's
is her
an Indian.
name.
She's an Indian woman. So let me go ahead and share her email. We want everybody in the chat to email her to let her know that we do not approve of the anti-black misandry being perpetuated globally. Vanity Fair is read globally. These people. This is not just the United States. These people are going to weaponize this, not just against African men in the United States, but African men in the UK, African men on the continent, African men in the Caribbean, in South America, in Central America. So this is critical.
Yeah, to answer your question, Trevor. Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of brands like a Vanity Fair, they have social media managers who handle their social media and stuff like that. But if you're talking to somebody directly, they still have social media managers, but one thing none of these people really want to deal with is a lot of outside public censure. Now, there's a theory that there's no such thing as bad press, and it's true to a point. But if you get a groundswell of people who are aware that they're not really rocking with the things they do, they're going to have to respond to it. And sometimes no response is a response, and you can still build on that. So yeah, you just have to use the tools you have.
But
That's
but the blue
exactly
check,
right.
but people with a blue check too, they can filter out responses from people that don't follow them, right? Aren't there all
I
types of
think so,
you have
with
a blue
that blue
check?
check. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a feature in there where you can do that, but there's no way, because look, these people are all on social media. There's no way to avoid thousands of people checking you about something you said. So even if you filter it out, you're going to see it one way or another, either through a third party, or it's going to show up, or somebody's going to show you, and you have to answer it.
Yeah, but I think even if you tweeted these people, take the time to write an email too. Like you can do both. I would say, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
So we want to encourage everybody that's listening. I just dropped her Twitter handle in the chat, and I also dropped her email. We want to encourage everybody that's listening. Still about 150 of y'all listening. Email this editor and let her know that we don't approve, right, of this all-out assault, attack on Black men in general as a whole, while using Dave Chappelle as a prop. And so she needs to know that we don't stand for that. We're not approving of that, and we're definitely going to use the tools at our disposal to let them know that. Period. Thank you all. Much love. Hopefully we don't have to do this again, but something tells me that we probably will. These people never stop their attacks on us. They have so many Black folks that's willing to do it for them. It's really a shame. But we're going to be standing ready, prepared to respond and to deal with it as it's come. Thank you all, and you all have a good night. Take care, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all.
Peace.